Hello everybody, my name is David Lefevre. Welcome to this webinar on Epigeum's Supervising Doctoral Studies program. Thank you for attending. I hope you find this useful. As we go along, please, if you have any questions, type them into the text box in the panel and we'll try to answer them as we go through, and if not, we'll answer them at the end. So there's two of us going to speak today. So this is me on the left, and my name is David Lefevre. I'm one of the founders of the Epigeum project. And I'm here with my colleague Sarah Grant, who is in our editorial team, was heavily involved in the development of the SDS courses. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell you a bit about Epigeum because it's an unusual project. We're then going to talk about the SDS program, explain what it is and why we built it and why universities are using it. Then I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to give a demonstration, actually show you what these online courses look like. And I think that's probably the most important part of this webinar because you'll get a real feel for what this is about. And then at the end, if we haven't answered your questions, we'll have a Q&A session. So about Epigeum, we were founded in 2005 as a spin-out from Imperial College London and acquired by Oxford University Press in 2015. So my day job's at Imperial College, where I run a educational technology department. We're now part of Oxford University Press, which itself is a department of Oxford University. So we're non-for-profit, we're fully owned by a university within the sector, and we've worked very closely with universities. So we're now the leading publisher of online courses designed to transform the way in which universities and colleges support their core activities of research, teaching and learning. So we don't do core curriculum, we focus on research skills, research methods, research careers, teaching and learning. And we offer 78 online courses across 12 programs. We work with 65% of the UK higher education institutions, so most institutions in the UK and in Ireland. We work with most universities in Ireland too, and most of the universities in Australia. We're used by 33 of the Times Higher Education Top World 100 institutions, and our programs are used by 260 institutions across 29 countries. So starting from a small project in 2005, it's a fairly sort of large endeavour now. And this is the unusual bit. We build our courses together with a group of up to 20 institutions. So it's a peer project. And the reason this emerged was that we were building courses at Imperial a few years ago and found that it was very expensive. And so we started to partner with institutions around us and build courses together. And what we found was not only did this lower the cost for everybody, but it also increased the quality through the peer review process. And we basically expanded this model. We became more international and we worked with more institutions. And then we formed Epigeum as a spin-out firm to basically manage this whole process, because as you can imagine, there's lots of money being transferred and contracts. And so Epigeum emerged from this early stage project to become a separate entity. If you look at the second bullet point, we work with world-class subject authors. So the 20 original universities put in some money. That gives us a pool of money. We use that to hire the very best people we can find and a team of reviewers as well. And then during the 12-month development process, all these people, the 20 universities, the reviewers, the Epigeum staff, go through a very thorough review process. So the courses have been tested and reviewed to ensure that they're useful and applicable to a range of different contexts. And the last bullet point, and this is our one of our true strengths, is a pedagogically sound structure. So we put a lot of work into making sure that the design of these courses is effective. Okay, moving on to the project we're talking about today, SDS. Supervising Doctoral Studies will empower universities to ensure all staff members involved in the supervision of doctoral candidates, including external supervisors, are well equipped to deal with emerging challenges in this continually changing field. So it's an off-the-shelf online training program that can be used by your supervisors across your institution. The program provides reassurance that institutions are employing the most effective and up-to-date techniques in supervision, ensuring the best possible environment for their doctoral candidates. So it enables you to ensure that everybody in your institution has a base level of knowledge on which to build their supervising practice. And why is this needed now? I mean, this project has proved to be extremely popular, one of our most popular programs. And I think it's because, as I'm sure you're aware if you're attending this webinar, there's growing recognition in institutions for the need for supervisor development support. So certainly in the UK and Ireland, most students are very happy with the supervision they receive, but a small number of people are not happy at all. And for those people, it's a very serious matter given the reliance on their supervisor. So really, the research agenda is about focusing on those small people who maybe are not receiving the best experience. The second challenge is the changing landscape of the doctorate. So there's many more people doing PhDs and many more people doing different types of PhDs. And then the third point here is that the student population is becoming increasingly diverse. So all these three things offer challenges to all of us in higher education to ensure that all people giving research supervision have a base knowledge of best practice. And that's what these courses can do. Who was involved in developing the content? Well, here's Douglas Halliday was a lead advisor, and we'll hear from Douglas in a minute. And you can see here's a range of authors and reviewers involved in the project. And here's the universities who were involved. So you can see there's a lot of universities from the UK, Ireland, Australia, primarily in the countries where this has really been identified as a critical issue. So we'll now watch a short video from Douglas Halliday. He'll give his view on the role of these courses.
Benefits for institutions from using this program will come from being able to train and support their academic staff as PhD supervisors. The external environment for PhDs has changed in many countries. There are now external regulations, frameworks that need to be adhered to. There are also requirements from funding agencies and sponsors for PhD candidates to submit a thesis within a defined timescale. There is also the need for improved training and support to be offered for PhD students. So when you consider all these additional requirements, it's important that institutions are able to support and train their academic staff so that they can be effective supervisors who are able to encourage candidates to grow into independent researchers and successfully complete their PhD projects within a well-defined timescale.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. So hopefully that's given you some of the background to the project. And let's talk about how these courses are used. So Sarah will show you the courses in a minute, but how they're used, they can be used in three primary ways. So first of all, as standalone online courses. So you can put them into your own virtual learning environment. You can adapt them. If you do that, you can adapt them to your institution. You can add your own content around them. You can put them in your own VLE, or you can give your staff access to our VLE. Once you've done that, there's three ways in which they can be used. One is standalone courses. So in this mode, staff can access the courses online in self-study mode anytime and anywhere they like. So it's the most flexible option. Option number two is to use the courses with tutors. So the courses have a range of optional activities, such as portfolio activities, which can be used by tutors to give students more support. So it's a higher quality learning experience, but maybe with less flexibility, because you probably want a fixed start and a fixed closing time. The third option, which is proving to be very popular, is using the courses as part of a blended learning program. So a typical approach in this mode is that staff will study the online course ahead of a face-to-face workshop. And The online course will give them the base knowledge and skills that are required, and then the face-to-face can focus on how those skills can be applied in their particular context. So it means that the workshops can be focused much more on discussion and application of the material. The other thing to mention is that you might be thinking, well, how do we get started with this? Epigeum has an implementation team who will sit down with you, work out a plan of implementation, listen to your needs, work out what a good solution would be, and really help you get started. And they don't withdraw from the process until you're confident you can implement the courses effectively. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sarah now, and she'll show you the courses in detail. And as you're looking at the courses, you'll see the amount of work that goes into them and how interactive they are. And just imagine that this material either in your VLE or your staff taking them, or how staff could be studying this material in advance of a program, etc. Before we move on, I've got a question from Tom, which is about are the courses SCORM compliant? And the answer is yes. So whichever VLE you're using, we produce a SCORM package for that VLE. And then the courses can be imported at a stroke. Okay, so I'll now hand over to Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and I was one of the editors on this programme. I'm going to start off by giving you a quick demo of the programme. So starting first then with the main screen of the first unit, I'll begin by highlighting a couple of features relevant to the programme as a whole. So at the top of every screen, you'll see here we have a learning outcome. This is so that participants are aware of what's going to be covered in the screen and what they should have learned, should be able to do after completing that screen. You'll also notice over here on the right hand side an estimated duration for each screen, so here 20 minutes, so that participants have an idea of how long it's likely to take them to work through the screen. These vary in length throughout the programme. 20 minutes is on the longer side, and they kind of range between 1 minute and 30 minutes, really depending on things like video content. Moving on then to the main screen content, we start with a polling activity here, in which supervisors are asked to consider a set of statements relating to their own doctoral experience and to compare their answers with their peers. This is a great reflective exercise that encourages supervisors to think back over which aspects of their own doctoral experience were positive and effective and which were less so. It's also the perfect opportunity for supervisors to consider how the current expectations and demands of candidates and supervisors differ. So here we'll see a question: when I started my doctorate, my supervisor helped me to understand the research process in my discipline. Perhaps you agree, so you check that box, then you can register your vote, and it will bring up the comparison with your peer group. So here you can see that 42% of your peers, 127 votes, agree with this statement, and then you'd move on to the next. My supervisor helped me to critically engage with the research literature in my field, and again, you can register your vote. This exercise is then followed by a second polling activity that requires you to rank what supervisors consider to be the three most important characteristics of a good supervisor. And so here we might select: is fair and honest, provides honest and constructive feedback in a timely manner, and perhaps is reliable. And again, we can register our vote here to compare with our peers to see what they think is the most important. As you can see, here provides honest and constructive feedback in a timely manner has registered a huge 24.57% of the votes, 214 voters altogether. So it's quite a good resource to compare to see what other people in your field think. So the polling activities are a pretty popular aspect of our programs. They offer a unique, interactive and more objective way of offering feedback. It provides a general overview of opinions and experiences rather than offering prescriptive feedback from a single author. We then move on to a set of video interviews in which supervisors and candidates discuss the fundamentals of doctoral supervision, including what they find to be the most frustrating and gratifying aspects of the process. I'll just give a quick play here to see how this goes.
The fundamental characteristics of doctoral supervision revolve around establishing a relationship of trust between the supervisor and the doctoral candidate. This means that you act, I think, as a critical friend, that you are there to guide and shape the study, but not to dominate it. It's important to remember that this is the doctoral candidate's own research. This is their own passion. This is their engagement with the discipline. So it's important that as a doctoral supervisor, you give the student the time and the space to develop their independent interpretations and arguments while using the benefit of your own experiences to enrich their study.
And so we try to use video as much as possible in our programs, as it really helps to bring the material to life and offers a personal touch and a variety of practical advice based on personal experience. These videos, as you've seen, are quite short and a vox pop style, and it's really just an engaging and interesting way for users taking the programme to hear what their peers have to say. All of our videos contain a corresponding transcript for accessibility purposes. And it's worth mentioning here that all of our interactive screens have an accessible counterpart containing flat text. So I'll just show you that briefly here. If you scroll to the top of the screen, you can look at a text version. And this is, these are compatible with screen readers and useful for those who are unable to use interactive versions for any other reason. And these have been developed alongside our expert accessibility advisor at the University of Edinburgh. I'll just flick back to our interactive version now. So you'll see that on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a number of little boxes, or what we like to call pods, which contain supplementary information, including quotations, documents to download, useful advice, key terms, and links to further reading. The type shown here is a quotation pod, and the quotation here is from the Utah State University and outlines some of the key criteria for their Outstanding Graduate Mentor of the Year award. All of our quotations are followed by a reflective question. So here, for instance, we ask supervisors to think about whether this captures the key criteria and how they think they measure up. There's also a practical suggestion to speak with their own candidates about what they expect from their supervisor. There's also a useful links pod here directly below. And this contains a link to a brochure produced by candidates from the University of Otago in New Zealand on the most important qualities of doctoral supervisors. It's worthwhile saying at this point that we have done our best to represent all of the universities that were involved in the development group, so from the UK, Ireland, Singapore and Australia and New Zealand in the pods, so that everyone's represented. So they shouldn't be too heavy on just coming from a UK perspective, for instance. You're also able to go in and amend these to yourself to match with your own institution. So let's just take a look at another screen here. Let's look at being a doctoral supervisor. So this is a screen about your role as a supervisor within the wider institutional and external context. And I just wanted to show you this screen because it contains a case study. So throughout the programme there are a number of case studies, mostly based on real life examples. And some serve as examples to help illustrate a wider point, and others like this one are more interactive. And all case studies are highlighted using this case study icon, as you can see on the right-hand side. In this scenario, we're presented with an example in which a supervisor fails to take into account their candidate's funding regulations when planning a visit to an overseas institution. The upshot is that if the candidate wants to continue with her proposed research trip, she will either have to defer or risk being in breach of her funding body regulations. If we move past the scenario to the next screen, we can see that participants are then presented with a question about what extent they feel the supervisor is culpable in this situation, i.e. is the supervisor's responsibility to know about the regulations, and then there's an option to view our feedback. So you'd enter your text in here and then view our thoughts. Here our thoughts tend to be on, well, yes, of course, the onus is on the student to know what their restrictions are, but the supervisor is also responsible in this context. So it's worth noting here that there's a cast of characters that appear throughout the SDS programme, and these are introduced at the beginning of each unit. You can trace their journeys as they progress throughout their candidatures. So here, if we look back, we talk about a student named Anna, and if we look in the introductory screen here to the unit and scroll down, you'll see the characters are introduced. So here's Anna here, and they've all got a little profile here, and their stories continue as the programme develops. If we head back to that screen now, I just wanted to demonstrate one of our timeline activities down here. So in this activity, supervisors are presented with a number of different academic tasks that candidates are standardly expected to complete within the first year of their candidature. They can drag and drop each task onto the timeline. So here we have a literary review, and you drag that item onto the timeline, and then you can adjust the markers. So you might think, okay, literary review, that's something they should really be doing quite early on in their candidature, and perhaps you think it should span the first 6 months. Again, research skills, that might be something that you want them to develop right to the end of the first year. Note also at the top of the activity you'll see hints appear for each option to help guide your decision. Once the activity is complete, we also offer this feedback button will become active to see our thoughts on how you've placed them on the timeline and to give a bit of advice. I just wanted to point out another feature in this screen. So at the end of the first unit there's this mapping tool, and this enables supervisors to organise their priorities. So basically, perhaps you might want to pitch this course at all supervisors, including those who are most experienced, but most experienced supervisors won't necessarily want to engage with the entire programme. So this tool allows them to kind of pick out what their priorities are, and then by selecting these boxes, these kind of radio buttons here, what's high priority, and then they can view a summary, which essentially gives them a breakdown of which screens they ought to prioritise throughout the whole of the programme. And that way they can go directly to the advice and the learning points that they need to develop, rather than having to sit through the entire programme. And this also can be printed for their records. At the end of each of the units we have references and also a resource bank. Here we have a list of recommended resources separated into general and then country-specific resources. These are fully customisable so that institutions can add or delete as many resources as they like. I'm just going to switch now to one of our other units in the programme. This is called Managing Progress, and I'll look at this giving feedback screen. So this is a screen about evaluating the most effective ways to give candidates feedback on their work. And I just wanted to show you one of our comic strips down here. So I've chosen this screen as it shows off one of the nicest features of the programme, I think, which are these comic strips which help to explain key learning points. This comic strip here emphasises the need to be well prepared, focused and open to debate when discussing work with candidates, by giving an example of how not to give feedback. So here we have a doctoral candidate, Freya, who you will be introduced to in the first unit of the programme, and she's waiting for her supervisory meeting with Dr. Luciolo, who is late and then makes the decision that despite being late will also go and make a coffee. Freya is anxious to know what he thinks of her most recent chapter. She seems really excited about her work, but it becomes quickly clear that he hasn't had an opportunity to really look at it in advance, so he's not really prepared. He picks up on something Freya mentions about changing direction, and off the back of this he immediately suggests scrapping the chapter. They argue a little bit, and Freya clearly wants more substantive feedback, but he only has these few kind of handwritten notes. He then tells her to go away and think about what to do next without any guidance or direction, and then Freya leaves the meeting, ultimately feeling confused and a little bit lost. We then, directly below the comic book, have a number of bullet points detailing precisely where Dr. Luciolo goes wrong, and this helps to consolidate some of the ideas that are presented in the comic book format. So this first one, for instance, says that it's clear from the scenario that the meeting is not his priority. He shows up late and distracted, and it becomes clear that he hasn't yet had time to read Freya's chapter thoroughly before the start of the meeting. So we also provide these supplementary portfolio activities throughout the programme in these portfolio activity pods. So for example, here we have an activity that invites supervisors to think constructively about planning a feedback meeting. They should note down their ideas and then share these with 1 or 2 colleagues. They should then note down any further suggestions. The portfolio activities are intended to supplement and enhance participants' learning as they progress through the units. And in addition to appearing as individual activities in the pods, they're also available for supervisors to download in a workbook format at the beginning of each unit. So we could have, they can download an individual one that would look something like this, or at the beginning of the program they can download a kind of a compilation of all of them at once that they can then work on as they progress throughout. The aim is that this will help researchers to think beyond the scope of the program and also to act as a useful reference throughout the duration of their careers. Portfolio activities can be completed by supervisors independently and do not require the use of a tutor. However, institutions may choose to use the products of the portfolios as part of a personal development review or to gain institutional recognition as part of a CPD, Continuing Professional Development Programme. So I hope I've given you a good taste of the programme content and some of the pedagogical features with this demonstration. If you have any questions, please do jot them down now, or feel free to contact someone at Epigeum after the webinar. Thank you. Just going to pass you back to David now.
Thank you, Sarah. So I hope you found the demonstration useful, and I hope you agree that these courses really are an excellent resource to provide your supervisor with the knowledge and skills of current best practice in this area. Okay, so we'll now move on to questions. So one, where is the poll data collected from? This is from Eleanor. So hello, Eleanor. Where is the poll data collected from? The peer group at the institution or all students of the course? The answer is all students of the course. So it's anonymous data. So there's no sort of data security issues. But it's all the people who are using the course across all the institutions who are using them. Hello again, Tom. So question is, how do you see the role of the mentor moderator? Well, there's two real modes. So there's the blended learning mode, we have face-to-face, and then there's the online tutor mode. The online tutor, the role we envisage is to primarily to guide students through the materials and to provide feedback on the activities. So guiding students through the materials, it's to establish a sense of group at the beginning of the course. It's to provide motivational messages to ensure people feel engaged with the course. It's to clarify common areas of misunderstanding, perhaps, to provide one-to-one messaging on in a Q&A format, so answering questions from the students, etc. So I think the tutor can play quite a significant role to enhance the experience. And then, of course, the other part is the face-to-face, and I think the role of the tutor then becomes much more of a facilitator, organising a discussion and application of the material. So it does change the role, the traditional tutoring role. But Epigeum, we've got a lot of experience of what works, what doesn't work, and if you subscribe to the courses, then we give you a session and we share all this knowledge with you. Okay. Here we go. So in my institution we have a few doctoral students but a lot of full-time masters by research students. How applicable do you think it could be as a training course for supervisors of such? Sarah, can you answer that?
Yes, I mean it's worth probably having a closer look at the programme, but I would expect it to be quite similar because the supervisor role is very similar in these circumstances. The difference, of course, would be the length of time, so it would have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Obviously, we're talking about a 3 to 5 year programme rather than a 1 year programme. But I'd say that the essential skills are the same.
You might need to be quite selective, mightn't you? Because certain sections like preparing for the Viva are probably not...
Yeah, so obviously preparing for the Viva, although if there is some kind of oral review at the end of the Research Masters, then this would be relevant. Again, this is a programme that's developed for Australian and New Zealanders as well, and they don't actually have a Viva at the end of their process, and this course is applicable to them. So I'd say, I would say a lot of it is relevant in that context. Although one of our implementation things is that you can actually hide some of the screens and introduce some of your own. So if you found that there was a screen that was just completely off track, you could actually get rid of that and have and introduce one of your own screens instead.
Great. Yeah, one thing we haven't emphasised is how modular the courses are. So if you put them into your own VLE, you can add screens, delete screens, move screens, disaggregate the screens and create completely new courses. So there's a lot of flexibility. Yeah, if it's a 2-year master's, like an MRes, where there's a significant project, then yeah, it's more likely to be applicable, say, than a 1-year master's with a 3-month project. Okay, hi Eleanor. So what facility is there for monitoring students' progress through a course? So this is a real nice thing about online courses. So as a tutor, whether you're using your own VLE or our VLE, you get a lot of data about what the students are doing, how many they've logged on, what they've looked at, etc. So that's a real key part of the teaching experience. So if you do have a teacher and they're not self-study, the teacher can log on daily and see what the students are looking at, what stage they're at, how they're performing in the quizzes, etc. So it's a real rich teaching experience, richer than a face-to-face experience where you don't really know which students are keeping up with you and how much they're understanding. So yeah, the data is a key part. If you have a wall of students, 120 students, you don't really know if they're, what they're doing. So yeah, great. Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope you found this webinar useful. If you have any questions or if you'd like to engage with this project further, then please contact my colleague Annie. This is her email address is marketing@epigeum.com. We'll put someone in touch with you, and it will be a process of helping you really get to grips with these courses and use them effectively. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope you found it valuable.
Thank you.